All right, today we're going to just carry on with our camshaft discussion. Um, just hang loose and we'll get into it. So, if you remember, well, maybe you don't because you might have not seen it, but in the intro video that Eric Weingartner done on me and Summit, we had talked. Just when he called me, we just talked about all kind of crap because our power was out, and I wasn't doing anything anyway. So we just, how it is when you get to talking, you just go on forever. So anyway, there was some discussion, and then he mentioned it in the video. There was some discussion about lift and making power and rocker ratios and all of that stuff. So we had run a cam, and I said, well, I'm gonna just look at the velocity differences, because his example that he did was a 1.3 and a 1.9 rocker. So I've got we run this cam, so I got the lobe in the software, and we can just toggle back and forth between we can make it be a 1.3 ratio and a 1.9 ratio. So let me get this screen recorder started so that way we can put this stuff, there we go, so we can put this stuff on the screen so you can see it well. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to let me do this. Let me just start with a 1.3. Alright, and then I'm going to take away this valve data. So this is the cam lobe itself, and this is the velocity profile for that cam lobe at the camshaft. Alright, so right now I've got if you see this green line, this green line is setting at peak velocity on the camshaft, which is also peak velocity on the valve itself. And again, right now we've got it set, so up here, if you look, this is our rocker ratio, and so we can change it to whatever we want it to be, but right now we just have it at a 1.3 to illustrate the example that Eric had. So peak velocity is happening roughly about 22 degrees after top dead center. So this valve opens 29.75 degrees before top dead center. So we're roughly we'll just call it 30. So we're roughly 52 degrees after opening, we see peak velocity. And so if we go up here and look, we are the cam lift at peak velocity is 146 thousandths, and the peak velocity and then again, this is a hydraulic roller. So he had a solid roller. I am pretty sure, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was a solid roller. So it's going to have higher velocity. Generally speaking, it's going to have higher velocity than this anyway. Most solid stuff is close to 10 on maximum velocity, and generally the rate of increase in velocity is faster also. So you'll see the acceleration number will be a little faster because that's the rate of change of velocity. So we are 8, for all intents and purposes, we have 8 thousandths of velocity. So if we come over here and turn on the valve lift and the valve velocity, so you can see the difference in, you know, the velocity is progressive. So it you know, they start off relatively in the same place, and then they get away from each other pretty quick. So if we come down here and look, and again, this is just with a 1.3 rocker. So you can imagine what's going on, you know, with a 1.9 or a 2.0 or something, you know, with a really aggressive cam, how much, and that's where it goes back into, you know, like push rod deflection, rocker arm deflection, spring surge, and just the initial, because if you can, let me see if I can zoom in on it, maybe. I still ain't got all of this. All right, so this here, this first area that we see here, this is the camshaft acceleration. This is the valve acceleration. So you can see just, you know, it's translating through the lobe into the valve, and you can see just in that 1.3 ratio translation how much more aggressive it is at the valve versus at the camshaft. So, you know, you think about going from this at a 1.3 to a 1.9, I mean, it's going to get saucy. Matter of fact, let's just look at it. So, you know, visually, here we are. This is a 1.3, and then we're going to go to a 1.9. Now you can't even see the transition where it starts. I mean, it's just a straight line almost. And so, I mean, that's substantial. And so if you think about it, let's bring this back down. Let me go back to a 1.3, and then we're going to bring the screen back to normal. All right, so, you know, you can imagine, especially in a performance engine where, you know, it wants to get that valve, or where we need to get that valve up into the higher flow areas as soon as possible, how much difference that's going to make. And like we, you know, and he mentioned it, and me and him talked about it a good bit, is it's hard to have two valves or two lift curves with the same duration, and one not be a lot more aggressive than the other. And in the same way, and again, it's not nearly as bad as rocker ratio. So, you know, I think his example was like a 250. So if we got 250 degrees of duration, and one's, you know, whatever, 400 lobe lift and 450 lobe lift, well, at the cam, the profile difference, I mean, it's different, but it's not, you know, crazy different. But once you translate that into a high ratio rocker arm, then the difference is miles apart. So I'm not saying it's impossible to actually do a A/B test on just lift, but it's going to be really hard to do a A/B test just on lift, because we're dealing with the multiplying factor of the rocker arm, and that just exacerbates the issue. And the bigger the rocker ratio, the worse the problem is. So, you know, you can see even with a 1.3, it's still pretty substantial. So, having said that, so again, so at the valve, at peak velocity with a 1.3 rocker, we are 190 thousandths lift on the valve, and we're 10 thousandths and 6/10ths velocity at the valve. So keep that in mind. I'll try to get Andrew to put that on the screen. So that's where we are with a 1.3 rocker. And then let's change it to a 1.9, and then we'll just look at how much that changes. And it's pretty substantial. So we go all the way up to 277 thousandths lift. Keep in mind, we are still at the same exact location. So we haven't moved the camshaft. The camshaft is still, you know, right there where we were. Mashing the wrong button, sorry. All right, so with the 1.9, we are, and you can see obviously how much more aggressive this lift curve is than it was with a 1.9. I mean, it's crazy. So we are still at peak velocity, as far as I know, 20. Let me make sure that I didn't click something. Yep, right there. Yeah, so yeah, I have moved it a little bit. So we are 297. So that's almost 1/8 of an inch more lift at the same location in degrees, in crank degrees. And the velocity is 15 and a half thousandths. So we went from 10 and change to 15 and change velocity. And then we went from, what was it, like 180 lift to 297 lift. So close to 1/8 of an inch difference in lift at that, you know. And again, we just right past top dead center, not real far. So we got a long way to go. So all of that extra lift is going to translate into a lot more cylinder filling, because we are up in that, you know, in that higher lift area, versus with the low ratio rocker. And then not only with the low ratio rocker, we're moving much slower, which is, I think, the bigger deal. But I'm really interested in, so that's just a back and forth. So I'm gonna just snap it back and forth a couple of times. So again, look at this lift curve, how close it is to the cam, and then watch what happens at a 1.9. I mean, it's just night and day. The area under the curve, it over doubled the area under the curve, going from a 1.3 to a 1.9. So that's just substantial. And again, like I say, you can see the velocity. It's completely off the chart. You can't even see it. So again, I just feel like that the lift is helping us 110%, but the where the lift is helping us is the big deal. And so high ratio rocker arms are great, but again, you know, it's the bigger the ratio and the more aggressive the cam was already, can get you into trouble. Because like I say, we already at 15 thousandths velocity, you know, and this is just a hydraulic, you know. I mean, it ain't no sissy load, but it ain't no crazy max effort neither. So it's going to take a really stiff, super light valve train and a really good spring package to keep all that under control. And that's why, and again, because it's a multiplier, I feel like, and again, I don't know it, other than I've heard a lot of people, like really, really intelligent people that are testing this stuff every day, that are big timers. Most people want to put as much lobe in it as possible, and then just work it out with the rocker, instead of putting you know, a medium-sized lobe and a ton of rocker ratio. And I tend to, just from what I see, I tend to agree with that thought. I know I watched a lot of stuff from Richard Mashkin, who owned Dart. and you know, they come from the pro stock world, and they tested and tested and tested, and he, you know, he says a lot of really good stuff. But one thing that always stuck with me is he said, you know, they tried it a bunch of ways, and it just seemed like it worked better having all the lobe lift you could possibly get and a quality lobe design versus a whole bunch of rocker ratio. So, and again, I've heard other people that are, you know, really high level at this game say the exact same thing. So I tend to agree, and I think, you know, I ain't saying 1/8 are out of sight, but you know, to me 1/7 is, you know, I mean, man, that's a lot of rocker ratio. So anyway, but I thought that would be interesting to see the actual difference in the velocity profiles, because it's, like I say, it's really substantial. And sometimes, you know, we just busy, and man, we run these cams through, and I'm not always, you know, dissecting all of this data, this available to me, and that's why I'm out here on Saturday and Sunday half the time doing crap like this, just trying to learn stuff, you know. I mean, there's so much data available that sometimes it's just hard to know what to do with it. And we have actually, while we're talking about it, my little brother's son, Max, he's been working for us for the last couple of weeks, and I've had him, and it's sad. The dyno room has actually been a storage room for the past, I don't know, 4 years probably. And so I had him clean it out, and because we were hot and heavy on the dyno room, and then some of you know, some of you don't, my ankle went out, and that was a whole, just an absolute disaster, and I had to have my ankle screwed together, and that whole episode took me about 2 years, I think. So, because I actually couldn't even walk after surgery for 4 months. And then before surgery, I couldn't hardly walk either for almost a year and a half. It was really bad. So anyway, so the dyno deal got just put on the back burner, and the really sad thing is, and everybody says it's the best stuff, it's a Deepak data acquisition system with a full ADL Lite load control. So it's, you know, it's a fully automated suite, you know, like nice stuff. And it's a docking cart deal, so it ain't, you know, you ain't got a motor puller in the dyno room crap. You can load the motor out here and just roll it in and plug it up. So anyway, we got the room cleaned out. Oh, and what I was saying, and the bad thing was, Dave died in a plane crash. So Deepak Dave. So now, I mean, there's some people doing some stuff with it, but there's no real official support for the system, and it's been sitting so long now, and it's been in a cool, dry place. Hopefully there's not going to be an issue, but in the future I'm sure there's going to be an issue, and so we're probably going to end up having to retrofit the control system. I'm afraid, and I really don't want to have to do that, but I bet that's what's going to happen. But back to the story. So Max got the whole room cleaned out, swept, well, almost. They still a bunch of blocks and stuff in there, but we have 300 cams and 50 crankshafts that were ground and bagged and tagged and just stuff and heads and on and on and on. So we got all of that out, got it all swept up, and we're going to try to get the dyno screwed to the floor, and we still got to put the metal. We're going to do metal like in here. It's going to have, you know, white commercial building metal on the inside, and we got to still cut the holes for the exhaust. I got to finish the control room, a bunch of wiring, a bunch of plumbing. But I hope if things will sort of slow down some, I mean, that's a double-edged sword, you know how that works, but if things will slow down some, I'm hoping we can, this winter, we can get, because I mean, winter's just around the corner, heck, you know, it's October, get that thing all hammered out and get it running and operating and the bugs worked out, and then for sure we're going to start doing tons of you know, A/B testing. You know, we think this and we're going to test it, and you know, back to back, and do all that kind of stuff, and then we'll be able to develop, you know, packages. And we got some I can't really like super talk about it, but we got some vendors that we're going to start doing some tech videos for, and some testing for, some parts manufacturers, and all of that stuff's going to be exciting. And we got to for sure have the dyno up and running for some of that stuff, and I think all that's going to be super neat. And you know, you don't never think in the, because I know that me and a bunch of people, I have a lot of shops that have YouTube channels that call us and buy cams, and we talk, you know, and like everybody's got you know, everybody's got issues, and things ain't just smooth and rosy all the time. And I know people, like for me, you know, we struggled along for a long time as far as, you know, trying to get to a level where we felt like we could do the kind of work we wanted to do, and not just have to do garbage work that we don't want to do just to pay the bills and that kind of stuff. And so you always wonder, because we spent a lot of time with this whole YouTube thing, and it really doesn't, like, quote unquote make money, like as far as YouTube goes. But now it's funny, you know, like, I mean, to me it's funny, or not funny, but like I'm shocked, I guess, at the amount of businesses, suppliers, other shops that watch our channel. And that's just crazy to me, that, you know, a lot of these other businesses and shops and distributors, they're watching our content. And that, I mean, that's amazing to me, and I really appreciate it, and I think it's just awesome. And I never would have thought that that would happen, right? You know, I mean, to me, it's just, you know, it's just me and my kid, my wife, a bunch of hillbillies in here doing what we do. And it's not, I mean, it's exciting to me, but I don't, you know, you just wonder if it's exciting to other people. But anyway, but I think that's great that people watch and they seem to enjoy it. And, you know, I don't try, I'm just me, right? So I don't try to be somebody else on camera different than I am in person. I'm just, this is who I am, and I act just like I act on camera in real life. And we go on foolishness, and we have a great time, and we just tell stuff like it is. And, you know, we don't pretend to be super top fuel engine builders, or, you know, none of that kind of nonsense. We're just doing what we're doing, and we're having fun doing it, and we try to do quality work at a decent price. But anyway, enough of that. So, but, you know, now we're seeing some, you know, like real feedback. We got some manufacturers that are starting to talk to us about stuff. So I think in the future, as we go, we're going to get to see, you know, some new products maybe. We're going to get to test some products, evaluate some products. And, you know, if you know anything about me, you know I'm just going to tell it like it is. So if the product's garbage, it's just garbage. And if it's good, you're going to get to know about it. So I think some of that stuff will be good for us as a business and for you as a consumer. And like I say, we're going to carry on with this cam stuff, because like I say, I'm learning, and you can learn with me, and we'll all know more when we get done. So thank you again for watching. I hope that was interesting. And like I say, we're going some kind of way. I don't know exactly how the test is going to be, but we talked about it a little bit. But I'm going to do some cams, and Eric's going to test them back to back with this lift deal, and we're going to just see what it looks like. So thank you again, and we'll see y'all on the next one.